HomeGain.com has an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and contains a wealth of information, like their home improvement tool that helps you determine which home improvements to make to increase your home's value. See the top 12 home improvements right now at HomeGain.com. That's HomeGain.com. Look for Max, the orange HomeGain Gorilla, to help you find a realtor or with any other real estate needs you might have at HomeGain.com, your real estate connection.
This is Alex Jones, and I want to tell you about the Ecola Blue atmospheric water generator that produces pure drinking water right from the humidity in the air. No, this isn't science fiction. It's very real. I know because I use one every day in my own home, and it's available right now to you. Because you know exactly where your water comes from with Ecola Blue, you'll know what's in your cup. Clean, great-tasting water without all the pollutants. Get your family off the grid today by ordering your own Ecola Blue atmospheric water generator for your home or business. Their best seller, the Ecola Blue 28, produces up to 7 gallons of water every day. The Ecola Blue 28 is easy to use and economical. Generate your own pure water from the humidity in the air. This system is free of chemicals and uses a multi-stage filtration system, including reverse osmosis, carbon filters, and ultraviolet lights. Order now and claim your water independence today by calling Ecola Blue at 1-800-691-6043. That's 1-800-691-6043. Or visit Ecola Blue on the web at www.ecoloblu.com today.
Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
On the airplanes, if the airlines were responsible, there is technology available now that every individual could be issued something no bigger than a cell phone, and it would be your identification badge. The airline can have that registered. So they say, oh, I know your little gadget there belongs to Ron Paul, so I want you to put your fingerprint on it. You put your fingerprint on it, and they get the recording. They have no record of your fingerprint, no records kept. The government doesn't know anything about it, but I'm a frequent flyer. But I have my passport, I have a card, which I have voluntarily gotten.
It's a corporate passport.
Only I can turn that ID badge on, and that technology is available. So that at least would take care of 90%. Even if you didn't fly a whole lot, you could get pre-screened for this. That's what I would do if I was running the airlines. I wouldn't say, oh, anybody come on, I'd be very careful,
But, Congressman, we know what's really happening. Take Austin, Texas. $150 million spent on Capital Metro that 1% of the city rides at a cost of over $35 per ride. The person pays $2. And $70 million is spent on Austin roads. So more than double the money is spent because the government gets to control the buses than what all the rest of the people are using cars. They only get half of the money or less of their own tax money. And it's the same thing with big government. Big government with revolving doors, with Homeland Security people, they're all making money as consultants. They recommend the body scanners and the surveillance, and then they make money off of it. It's criminal.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. When I heard that thing about Chernoff, it's hard to believe. Somebody was interviewing him like, oh, by the way, I know you run this, and how did you guys know that this was so important? It was like he was really smart that he figured this out. It wasn't like, is there a conflict of interest? And that question never even came up when he was being interviewed.
Well, that's like in Congress, whenever Paulson, head of the Treasury, they'd say, well, you got tens of millions of dollars of your own bailout money. And he'd say, I gave myself a waiver.
Yeah, it made it legal, huh?
I mean, can I give myself a waiver, Congressman, to rob banks?
They gave that, I can't remember which company it was, but they were bankrupt and we bailed them out and all, and they still had a tax problem. So they just wrote the taxes off, hundreds of millions of dollars. No, okay, those last 3 years' taxes, you had a lot of trouble, so you don't have to pay those taxes. Can you imagine if you had a tax problem and you had difficulty when the IRS came? Well, we know you had trouble, so you don't have to pay those back taxes. But that's the way the system works, unfortunately.
Sir, Dr. Ron Paul, Congressman Ron Paul, joining us. Got about 8 minutes left here. Sir, I saw a Bloomberg report where Goldman Sachs is arming its employees literally against the public with pitchforks. in Washington, are they starting to get the same sense that Wall Street is, that the people are recognizing their criminal activity, passing unconstitutional bills without even reading it? Because it seems that Washington's only getting more criminal. They don't seem to care. Or is it more like rats running off the sinking ship with the loot?
Well, there's some of that. I work on the assumption that Washington is usually about 10, 15 years behind what the people are thinking. So I don't think a person like Nancy Pelosi is aware of what the people are really thinking. You know, if she heard about the Tea Party movement, I mean, she writes that off. That's 1 or 2% of the population that are all nuts. And she just totally dismisses it. So that's where generally Washington is. I just don't think that they're quite aware of what's happening with the grassroots, and I think that's where the real changes are occurring. And of course, I'm always hopeful that there's some real changes with the young people. So that's why I keep talking to myself so that I'm always hopeful.
Speaking of hopefulness, Iceland, it looks like may say, no, we're not going to pay off private debt. England is listing all Icelanders basically as terrorists. They can grab and hold the money that's in British banks. Goldman Sachs has been caught engineering that crisis. That's come out in the news. I mean, shouldn't we just tell these private banks we're not going to give you any more bailout money?
Well, we should have never given it in the first place, and we shouldn't give any more. Besides, pretty soon it'll be worthless and won't matter much. So the more you give away, create money out of thin air, the more you give away, you may temporarily help some of their friends, but it's just more of the same thing. That's how we got in this trouble, and that's how they're going to keep it going.
A lot of economists are saying we could have total depression within the next year, the real economy over 20% unemployment, all the numbers that I know you're well aware of are really bad. While the mainstream media says this is a great economy because the big banks are making money off the bailout. The dollar's continuing its slide, went up for a little bit, but still overall it's going down. Where do you see us in 2 years, Congressman?
I think we're going to be much poorer as a nation. I think unemployment rates are going to stay very high. I think by 2 years it'll be acknowledged that there was no recovery. I thought there were some very good articles, and I commented on one this past week about Paul Krugman. You know, he analyzed the past 10 years, and he had a good analysis. We're all worse off. The real employment has, real income has not gone up, and investments have not gone up. He did say that you'd be even Steven on your stocks from 10 years ago, but yeah, actually lower. If you take into account the inflation, you're down about 20%. But, of course, he said what we needed was more spending and more regulations, and that would have solved all that problem. But no, I think it started 10 years ago. I think we started slipping into the recession, depression. I think there's no signs that we have reversed things. They talk themselves into thinking that things are improving. When the dot-com bubble burst, they didn't allow the correction to occur, so they created a housing bubble. Well, they started feeling better. But it didn't solve the problem. Now a lot of people don't have houses.
But you don't believe gold is a bubble?
No, I don't believe that. I think
so that's an inflationary issue.
I think gold reflects, if anything, it's way behind because the bubble is the size of the dollars created. The real bubble, I think, is in the bond market. Because the price of bonds are so good because the interest rates are so low, but that's just being held together. I think this is what the Fed does in collusion with other central banks is they prop that market up. But
so
the market will rule. Pardon me?
I'm sorry. So if gold met inflation, what it'd be like $2,500 an ounce?
It would be a lot higher. The market, I don't think the market's been allowed to adjust to that yet. I think there's that's the other thing that an audit might reveal is how much they're involved in the gold market because the governments have always been involved in gold, even when they had gold 1,000 years ago. The government would, the kings would dilute the metal or clip the coins and do different things. And up in 71. We dumped gold to try to keep gold at $35 an ounce, and that was a joke. And now they
absolutely
they do it a different way now, but they're working very hard. They know that a high price of gold is a vote against paper, and they can't allow the people to question the paper money because their kingdom is finished when the people question it. And they're only beginning to question it. So, if anything, gold is a long way from a bubble. The real bubble is in the size of the currency market, and the value of the dollar is artificially high, and the bonds are artificially high.
Congressman, I totally agree with you. In the last minute and a half we've got left, homeschoolers in California, they ruled a couple years ago that homeschooling's a privilege, that the state owns their children. That got overturned. CBS News reports these people moved to the town, didn't register their kids. It was a civil matter. But the CPS said, yeah, but that's child endangerment. And so they were arrested through color of law. And the school is on television saying they deserve to go to jail. I mean, this is slavery in my view. I mean, if we can't raise our children and be left alone by the state, we might as well be the Soviet Union.
Yeah, this is tyranny, but unfortunately we sold that out a long time ago. When we decided the federal government was involved in education, always, for these good reasons. So once we allowed the government to take charge of it, there's been some up and downs. They tried to really stop homeschooling in the early 80s, and there was some court fights, and we won those. But no, they will never give up on that. They never give up on control of money.